Nothing is worse for a free society than a press that is in service to the military and the politicians. Nothing.
Strange New Worlds episode review. I would like the review to go now. Welcome back, friends and enemies. We are here to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 3, up to Episode 7. This is the one otherwise known as, What is Starfleet?
Baby, don't hurt me no more.
Now, spoilers do lie ahead, so consider this your last warning if those aren't for you. Otherwise, let's crack on into the episode. As you can tell, this is already pretty late, and this is going to be pretty quick slapdash, just some quick thoughts, because something has been happening towards this back half of Strange New Worlds. I'm going to do a dedicated video on it, but even when I'm not hating or am enjoying the episodes, there's just something lacking within this season that's kind of keeping me from fully enjoying it or fully becoming invested, and I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I'll save that for another video. Now, this is a mostly pure documentary episode. I mean, it's an in-universe documentary, so it's not real. It's somebody focusing on a specific mission that took place. Beto, the brother of Ortegas, Erica Ortegas, Brotegas, all of these things I like to call him. So it's all taking place from the point of view of a documentarian who has a very large axe to grind, and that's the crux of the episode. The actual storyline going in is very, a less fleshed out storyline of something we would have seen in TOS, except with much better graphics as far as the alien that's going on here. It's very Cold War-esque, and it's not entirely fleshed out. Now, I do think a lot of people were disappointed with how bare bones the story was, but I think that works in service to the documentary they were trying to tell. We weren't supposed to get all the details. It was supposed to be sort of a skewed view of what was going on here, with certain details left out for security reasons, certain details left out because it would make the narrative not focus on the direction that Beto wanted the narrative to take. So I think all of that actually works, even though the mission itself could have been more interesting. I think it worked for the conceit of this being a slander piece, I guess you could say, for Starfleet, although not necessarily. And that leads me to something I wasn't a fan of later in the episode, but we'll get back to that. This is supposed to be kind of an answer to a real-world question a lot of fans and people have had over the years. What actually is Starfleet? Is it a peacekeeping force? Is it exploratory? Is it a military? They've stated in the show it's not military. Also, other times they stated it is a military. It actually kind of appears to me that it would have to be at least partially military, even if it's not 100% military, by the sheer fact that it has absorbed components of an actual real military into itself. If you go all the way back to Enterprise, after the events of that series, the Makos, which were just their own kind of marine division of soldiers, for lack of a better term, futuristic space soldiers, they were absorbed into Starfleet after the founding of the Federation. We saw that in the Kelvin timeline, although those events took place prior to the shattering of the Kelvin universe, so that means it took place in the Prime Trek timeline as well. So if this exploratory, peaceful, whatever you want to call it, absorbed actual military into itself, doesn't that by the transitive property mean that it is partially a military, therefore it is a military organization with other elements there? Like, I guess, I don't know what the closest allegory would be on Earth, maybe, if Amazon decided to integrate the Air Force into itself, would that make Amazon a military because they now have a military as part of them? Or would that make them this wholly unique thing with military elements? Anyways, I digress. They really didn't get into the nitty-gritty details here. This was more of a personal journey for the character of Beto, which kind of grinds my gears a little bit because we get an entire arc, as hastily as it was actually put together, of Brotegas, Beto Ortegas, before we actually get an entire episode or anything to do with the actual character on the show, Erica Ortegas. So now we've had 2 seasons with her where she does nothing but fly the ship. We get her brother brought in a new season. We get him featured in a couple of episodes. He gets a romance. He gets a storyline that's wrapped up and resolved in this episode for the most part. And we still don't know anything else about Erica. It seems like they're actively attacking the audience with these little pricks like, oh, you wanted more Ortegas? Okay, we'll give you more Ortegas. Just not the one you wanted. And they actually do something similar in the very next episode for another character. But when I talk about that, that's going to be about Una. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. At the end of the day, I did like the documentary filmmaking here. I know it didn't necessarily look as futuristic as it could have. Obviously, you have to use the technology we have now, so it's not going to look super futuristic. I didn't find it jarring. I know a lot of people had issues with the shaky cam and stuff. That stuff generally doesn't bother me. I don't get motion sickness for the most part from that. So I actually kind of liked seeing all of these unique angles and shots. And I think that partially helped me not feel too bored with this episode, even though it wasn't really reinventing the wheel or doing anything all that special. So we have the in-universe documentary. It's between two planets that are at war with each other, kind of similar to some of the things we saw in TOS, where there's two sides and the Federation's on trying to help one side in their war against the other side that the Klingons might be helping. So it's kind of an arms race against the Klingons, playing up that allegory, although it's actually being compared to other more modern conflicts in our world. But I think it really fits nicely into the context of TOS era to have that Klingon Cold War thing going on. It didn't really feel out of place for that. I did like the Jakku, what is it called? The Jakaru, the nuclear space butterfly with Super Saiyan powers or whatever. I liked that. I liked the fact that it wanted to sacrifice itself. I liked all of that. I just kind of wish the motivation was just a little bit better aside from I'm over life. I kind of would have liked to see maybe a self-sacrifice to protect its children or to protect the rest of its kind. Like, it's been so mutilated and turned into hatred and turned into battle that it has no way of going back, and it is going to end its life to protect its other kind. I feel like having a self-sacrifice moment would have felt a bit better than just I'm over this life, I'm going to end it, and we're helping him do that, which I have no problem with. Starfleet is trying to help another sentient being to exist in its own terms and on its own rights and all of those things. Don't have a problem with that. I just kind of would have liked it to maybe tied in a little better with a feeling of catharsis as opposed to just a feeling of loss. But again, doesn't really take away from the story itself. Unfortunately, the episode didn't really distinguish itself as far as a documentary episode. I think it was a nice set piece, but I don't think it really stands out as anything too unique or special, especially when we've seen that played up in other series. No Pelia, no Scotty, no real footage of other crew members or other missions. This was all footage distinctly from this mission, which we had not seen prior. I also feel like it would have been a bit better had they maybe sprinkled in some other questionable choices, because Beto's entire plan for being here was to show that how shady and how not upstanding Starfleet actually is. So if he had an axe to grind, I feel like he should have used more shady out there footage, like he tried to do a little bit with the Mbenga interview and things like that. It just would have felt nice to use some of the footage we saw him taking from other instances and incorporating that maybe in a twisted way to show us like he is modifying the narrative to tell the story he wants to tell. Similarly, he blindsides Uhura with her dead best friend from the Academy, or the closest person she had to a friend at the Academy. I didn't hate that as far as the storyline goes. I hate the fact that they kind of moved beyond it and Uhura forgave him and they kind of went back to being partners after that. I feel like that was such an invasive thing that maybe we should have seen some fallout from that a little bit more. But I also feel like this was the perfect time to incorporate, I want to say, Gamble. He was mostly wasted throughout the season, so to have maybe some interviews Beto did with him back before he died, just showing how chipper and how eager to please and how happy he was. He was, this up-and-coming Starfleet officer who is just all about Starfleet, so bright-eyed, so chipper, so bushy-tailed, and then to intercut that with, his death, to show Uhura's friend died needlessly, or needlessly for the narrative. Even throw in some other people we've seen that were lost in the cause, like Hemmer. Obviously, we couldn't have an interview with Hemmer, but he could have showed footage or at least twisted the knife and just shown all of these people that lost their lives in service to the Empire of Starfleet, or whatever he wanted to tell. And that's another thing. I felt like at the end of the episode, he was turned around too quickly, and his motivations were simply just, he was a hurt brother who was sad that they took away his sister and she almost died. I get that as a good motivation, but it was just a little too easily resolved, and they turned things around a little too cleanly, and everyone went back to being friends, and they just moved on from this storyline like nothing substantial and horrible happened as far as interpersonal relationships go. All that being said, the shortest episode of the season at 40 minutes, actually it might be the shortest of the series. All of the things I just said, had they fleshed it out into more than just this trim 40-minute thing, which they even took out the opening credits, and we just saw some nice computer-generated facts about the Enterprise. That was a nice touch. I feel like they could have done a lot more with that. I also feel like they could have incorporated a lot more footage, and I'm kind of hoping there might be a longer cut of this episode that we get to see later. I also don't really know what happened to the documentary after this. Beto was turned around. The speech from Uhura about Starfleet isn't this faceless, nameless organization stomping on everybody. It's made up of the components of the people that enlist in Starfleet, and they want to do it because they want to help the universe. They want to better it. So it's never going to be a perfect organization, but as long as you have all of these people trying their best and doing their altruistic thing, it's always going to be some of the people trying to improve for the sake of everybody. Nice speech, nice sentiment, quick turnaround, and I don't know what's going to happen with the documentary now. Are we supposed to believe he actually released this version of the documentary? Is he now going back to recut and re-edit it? Are we going to see a different version at the end of the episode? I mean, the season? Or is this really it? Is he still tinkering with it, and is this just the rough draft that's not being released? I don't know. I'm kind of curious, and I feel like that might not be answered, or if it is, again, like a lot of things this season, it's just left hanging. And is there going to be resolution, or did they just not want to definitively tie things up? What did you think of this episode? How are you finding the season? Are you having similar troubles to me where it's not hitting all the right notes, even when you're kind of feeling like an episode isn't terrible? I think that the best analogy I've come up with is there's reheated leftovers and there's cotton candy, but there is yet to be an actual meal in this season, and it's just feeling at this point like a lot of nothing. And even when the episodes are fun, fluffy things, there's no meat in this season, so it's just kind of like, what am I really here for? But leave all your thoughts down below. Like, share, subscribe, join, whatever you think. I'll see you in the next one, and until then...
You turn that camera off when I tell you to turn it off!